Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy K. Abdul of the Civic Engagement Podcast. Tonight, as I promised, I'll bring you recap and analysis of the election results that have taken place. So, we had polls that have been counting. They've been counting provisional ballot, absentee ballot, mail-in ballots. They've been counting them. So that's why it takes so long to count the vote, because California has a mail-in ballot system. So that's why it takes so long to count the vote, because every vote must be counted. So civic engagement promised to respond to some of the questions that folks have sent me, inbox me, text me, and all of that. So now, all over this state, anybody could get involved to volunteer to work on election day. All you have to do is go to your county registrar of voters, fill out an application, just like a job application, and tell them that you want to participate, you want to help out. So that's part of civic engagement. So what that will do, that will enable the staff in that office to have help, so that they will be able to work faster and able to continue to pass on the load of the work that is built up for the election. Because as more people begin to register, more people begin to participate, the workload double for those registrar of voters employees. So if you want to involve a civic engagement, I've always preached, you could go to any county office, register, and tell them that you want to help out. And you could work the polling station, you could help at the return center, and you could help to drive the ballot back and forth once you've been trained. So these are all how you get involved. Like I've always said, civic engagement is about involving in every step of the process. And I said election is not a spectator sport. So we have seen the results that have been coming out, and folks have been wondering how we get here. Well, for one, I've always known that we're going to have a Democratic candidate for governor. I've always noticed that we're going to have a Democratic candidate for governor. Which one? In the beginning, it was uncertain, because Javier Becerra run a great campaign. Tom Steyer run a great campaign, and it was very important that one or two of those folks could get in to the November final election. So now we have seen that as from right now, it is going to be Javier Becerra, which I've always projected, and Steve Hilton. So it was going to be between Javier Becerra and Steve Hilton. So with Democrats, you know the assignment. Like they say, we know the assignment. So we knew California was always going to be at play. And we knew, because of our values, our demographics, the size of our economy, that there was always trying to be issues that they will bring up, they'll be at play. And that's why I'm so glad Governor Newsom had the foresight and the insight to put a lot of regulation in place way before all of this. They're also the inside of raw banter to defend a lot of these values, because that's what it comes down to. Because these guys was trying to create doubt in our system. They was trying to create doubt in our system to lose credibility. And you got a lot of hardworking professionals that have been doing this years in, day out. They are trained for this. They didn't just get here because they're looking for a job. They have been working career government officials that train with the expertise. So California has always been on the forefront of innovative. And so when I hear allegations that our election is being rigged and fraud and all that stuff, there is no evidence of that. None whatsoever. And I want to also be specific about the demographic of the California population. And I'm going to put some of these statistics and graphs in a simple format on my page after this post. There are 39 million people living in California. The population of California is 39 million people. We are the fourth largest economy in the world. The fourth largest economy in the world if we was a country. And when you break down the demographics of the population, now that we are speaking about demographics, 41% of the California population is Latinos. %41. So that is a great number. That is a great number. 41% of the California population is Latino. So, and we finally got a Latino candidate that is well qualified in Javier Becerra. So we know what to do. So the reason why the Republicans were able to break into the top two. Now, this is about statistics. The reason why the Republicans were able to break into the top two, because of we have a jungle primary system where both Republicans and Democratic candidates all run in one single race. That's called the jungle primary, where both Republicans and Democrats both run in the same race, and the two highest vote getters will run to the general election in November. Well, the problem with that, the Democratic vote were split. The Democratic vote were split in the beginning in 9 different ways, because there were originally 9 Democratic candidates, formidable. So the Democratic vote was split 9 different ways, as opposed to the Republicans, who really only have 2 formidable candidates. So they were able to consolidate their voters between 2 candidates, in Chad Bianco and the other guy, Steve Hilton. So the Republicans were able to consolidate their vote in 2 of their candidates, in Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton, while the Democrats were splitting I vote 9 different ways. So that was the challenge. So eventually we was able to break it down to at least 2 formidable candidates. But that's how democracy works. Anybody could run for office. It don't mean that you're viable. It doesn't mean that you could win. So, but now we know, when all is said and done, Javier Becerra is leading, and he's going to be the Democratic candidate in November. So, and also the breakdown. Every election, before there is a tally of voters that are registered party-wise. California is essentially a blue state. 45% of the registered voters are Democrat. 45%, as opposed to 25% Republicans. So once again, 45% of the registered voters in California are Democrats, as opposed to 25% Republicans. And then you have non-party affiliation. Those are mostly the people that switch the vote depending on how they feel. So obviously we have the advantage, so we got to fight for our democratic policy, for our democratic values, and for our democratic resident. So there is no way, after we've seen what we've seen playing out, that California would go out in November and vote for Republican governor. There is no way. The numbers is not there. The demographic is not there, and the momentum is just not there. So this is real numbers that could be verified. So the process of how we vote, how we count the vote, the people that vote, it's all public information, and it's all be verified. And so there is no evidence of any fraud or misinformation, none of that going on in California. So that's where we are at. So look forward to Javier Becerra, campaigning for him, volunteer, and all of that in November. So it brings me back to all politics being local in Oakland. So that was a formidable measure that was touted in Oakland, Measure E. And the whole idea for Measure E was to raise funds to continue to balance the city's budget as related to jobs and all that stuff. Well, that was an opposition group that was going against Measure E, because all the other measures passed. Measure C passed, Measure D passed, but Measure E as an opposition group, and it failed. And it looked like it most likely will fail when voters certify, because it's 54 right now. No. So sometimes a certain measure fail depend on the message. So it doesn't necessarily mean that one candidate endorses a message is always associated with a measure. So now the voters might not agree with what the message for that measure is, and that's all it is. It might not be because this candidate put forth this measure that means it's a referendum on that candidate. I just feel it's the message that the measure is trying to solve. That's what the voters rejected. So I'm not going to read too much into Measure E, whether it determined the fate of Beverly Lee or not in November. But I just know voters did not support that pass-through tax, and therefore it failed. And now the opposition group might claim victory. I mean, rightfully so. And the proponent group that put it forward might claim that it's not a reflection on their values or on the candidate that supported it. So again, it's up for the voters to decide. But that's basically what it is. All three are the measures that was in Oakland. Measure C passed, Measure D passed, and Measure E failed. And it brings me down to the most contentious race that's been brewing for the last 8 years, the Alameda County District Attorney race. Well, it looked like that race is finally being decided, and it most likely, after all is said and done, it's not going to go into a runoff in November. It's not going to go into a runoff in November because as we speak, Ursula Jones-Dixon is trailing by 64%. So she's over 50 plus 1. So that's an automatic victory. If she's over 50 plus 1, there is no need for a runoff to go into general primary election. And Pamela Price, the former DA that was recalled, is 25% of the votes. So that is one of the lowest percentage that she has had in long time. Because on both of her races that she won prior to this one, she had 40% of the vote. So apparently voters have made up their mind. They want to move forward. And like I said, politics, issues related to politics is a pendulum. It swings both ways. You go left and you go right. You go left and you go right. Up and down. So the pendulum must have shifted. The momentum on the values that she represents has swung. Now, that's all that is. There are other candidates that think they want some stability and they want to see the issues of the new DA and her ideas. So that's what that is. So it looked like Ursula Jones-Dixon is going to win that race. And so that's going to bring some sort of stability in that office. So it is always issues like this that come up that make sure that you have to get involved, because a lot of these issues have never been debated. So this was hardly debated, fought out, and been contentious. So outright, Ursula Jones won. Dixon won by 64%. So that's a victory. So civic engagement is been wrapping up a lot of this stuff. So yeah, so those are some of the issues. But now we want to make sure we keep the momentum. You know, primary elections are not that much excited because people always think that the final lady is in November. But what the primary election does, it gives momentum. It builds up momentum. So we need this momentum. The Democratic Party needs this momentum to continue to November to determine the makeup in Congress for the midterm. Because that's the only thing we have. And we started early with Prop 50 by passing Prop 50. And it's still out to determine how successful we are. And all of that will come to play in November. But the fact that California is making moves. That's very important. So the civic engagement have always been in the front line, advocating for people to get involved, get the right information, to participate. Because that's all what civic engagement does, give you the information, the tools to participate. Because if you don't get involved, somebody's going to make decision for you and you're not going to like the outcome. And that's why it's important to get involved. So this is just an update, you know, to get all the way till the first week of July 2nd, to certify the votes and all the final result. But that's where we at, civic engagement. Just want to give you an update, election update. And also, before I close, there's been some disturbing verdicts that have been going on. You know, disturbing verdict that's been going on in some of these criminal cases involving young African-American boys. It is heartbreaking. It is frustrating, I know, to get sudden result and verdict like that. But you know what? It is never building. It's never a simple process in the criminal justice system. You know, my heart aches, like in South Carolina, the young boy that was gunned down by the storekeeper. You know, without even looking at the facts involved in the case, come to find out it's just a bad optics. It presents a bad optics, and you could see why community members, community organizers are outraged. Because I don't care if he steals something. When he's running away, that's a sign that the threat, whatever threat he poses, is moving away from you. And you don't go looking for a threat. And the fact that he was pursued is troubling. Now, there are a lot of intricacies that goes into a trial. And so there are a lot of intricacies that go into a trial, presentation of evidence, you know, and testimony of the parties, the defendant, testimony of the witnesses. So all of those intricacies, when you build it up all, it determine the outcome of the trial. So it is a complicated process, but just looking at it from the outskirts, it's troubling. I hope and pray that we continue to protect our boys, that we don't find them in this situation. That is my hope and my prayer. And you juxtapose that with the Carmelo Anthony situation in Texas. It's also a very sad situation where a young man felt that he was being threatened and he had to defend himself in a deadly manner. That is also troubling. We want to put our young boys in a situation where they don't feel like they have to defend themselves with a deadly force. So that's why organizations that mentor boys, fathers that to get involved in young boys' life, so that we don't get to be in this predicament. The optic is all bad. It's a bad optic. You know, my head ache for the mother, and my head ache for the victim also. And I know there are a lot of intricacies that involve when someone feel like he's being bullied, or he should feel like his ego is being challenged, or his boyhood, his manhood. And that's why you need level-headed people to be in situation to calm situation down. Because I know how to say in the street, things could go from 0 to 100 real quick. But as grown men, as matured men, we have to be in the front line to mentor our young boys, protect them, advocate for them, provide for them, so that they don't find themselves in a situation where they feel like they have to defend themselves with a deadly force, or they find themselves in a situation where they need to be in a situation that could present deadly force to them. But these issues are complicated once you enter the court system, because it's all about how you proceed and present evidence. And there is a saying that cases are lost before they went to court. You already lost the case before you went to court, because if all the information and the groundwork, investigation, and evidence already been laid out, so by the time you come to court, they just put a rubber stamp on it. But that's my take on those two issues that have been so. But we got a lot of fighters for our young boys. We got a lot of resources for our young boys, and we got a lot of mentorship and all of that. So we don't want to think that they are powerful, they are miserable, they are not powerful, they are miserable, and not none of that. They are in a position to succeed. We're going to put them in position to succeed, connect them with resources and mentorship. So if you have a young boy that you think need guidance, reach out. I will guide them to my resources. So that's what we do. We got. So that's what civic engagement is always being about. Providing information and resources, because this is all we got. So I do this because this is what good-natured people do. Share information, share resources, and those candidates get involved and keep the faith, because fear kills dreams. Keep the faith, don't be fearful, and don't let your heart be troubled. So once again, this is the civic engagement with the election update. I will probably do one more after all the elections finalize end of June, probably first week in July. Okay, so this is the civic engagement and the election update and analysis as to why some candidate win, some lose, some measures won and lost, and why we still got to get involved. Because to the victor goes the spoil. So if you don't win election, you don't get to make decision. And if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. So you got to get involved. The more people get involved, the more chances you get to win. And then you get to make decision in your values, in your candidate values. So this is the civic engagement. In closing, I want to thank everybody that's been following my page. Continue to tap in, subscribe to my page for update and analysis. Keep the faith. Like I always say, don't let your heart be troubled. This is your boy, K. Abdul-Mahid of the Civic Engagement Podcast. Oakland is all we got. Oakland, California. We're gonna succeed. Peace. And the World Cup fever starts. So if you're a soccer fan like me, you know this is our time. You're gonna be seeing me rocking some of my World Cup hats, gears, and wearing different team jerseys. Because that's my #1 sport. Soccer, like some would say football. Keep the faith. Don't let you out with trouble. Civic engagement. Peace.